Hi there, welcome to another video from the VickersMG Collection and Research Association. This is one of our question and answer videos, our fifth, and hopefully you're finding them interesting, and they're certainly raising questions off of the back of those Q&A videos, but also it's making people a bit more aware that we're able to take these questions and answers as well, and we're getting more questions through some of our other videos. And this is perhaps a compilation of those questions that are coming up, some of which we've answered partly perhaps, and then it's also questions that are coming up on Twitter, Facebook, some of the other sort of frequently asked questions that we have. This one came off the back of our Vickers-Berthier video, which hopefully you've watched, and was about what the difference in weight was between the Vickers-Berthier and the Bren. So we've got, set up here our scales, our hanging scales, a bit of wood that hopefully will take about 10 kilos, and because we're sort of thinking that's what it is, and certainly we try to answer that. That came from Historical Firearms, the Armourer's Bench, Matt Moss there, so hopefully you follow that channel. They're a great supporter of ours, so please go and support them. And we've got the scale set up and we're going to take a look. This is the Vickers-Berthier Mark III that we had in that video. It's a case of finding the centre points there. And what have we got? That bit of wood's bending. We have not got a centre point. Right there. And actually this will tell you a bit about how the weapon balances as well. So there we go. We are at 10.4 kilos, 10.41 kilos. What's our unit change? 22.96 pounds, so 23 pounds. Keep going around those units. There we go. So let's have a look at what the Bren is. And we've got a Bren Mark 1. Bren Mark 1 here. So let's tear that off. Bren Mark 1. Where's the centre on this? Bit further back, is it? There we go. Bit further back again. Come on. So we've got 10.37, almost identical, look, 22.86 pounds. So almost identical. Now it's worth remembering that the trials that these were involved in against each other were against the Lewis. So we've got the Lewis. These are all deactivated guns. It's comparable because the deactivation will be a bit similar. Now this clearly doesn't fit on the scale point there. So we're going to have to go and get a little bit of strap to help support that. So we found a short piece of webbing strap that we've teared off. It's 0.035, so it's not going to have much of a difference at all. Let's see where the centre on the Lewis is. Got a bit further back. No, it's not. Other way. Further forward on the Lewis. This all goes in to tell you how easy they were, perhaps, to use. The centre point of the Lewis is probably going to change when we put a magazine on. But let's get that centre. It's still a bit far forward. There we go, and that's 12.51 kilos, 27.5 pounds. So the guns that replaced the Lewis in both the British Indian Army and the British Army were 23 pounds, 4.5 pounds lighter than the Lewis. Now what we're going to do is we'll take that off, but we'll leave it there. On there, because we'll use that in a minute. We'll just have to remember 0.035 is no difference. Turn that back on. Now let's try it with magazines. And we've loaded the magazines with inert ammunition. So what can we see? Let's put that 30 round magazine on the Berthier. See if that changes the centre point for a start. It does. Starts to create that a bit further forward. Maybe it's on the carrying handle now. There we go. That's a bit further back than the carrying handle. What we're going to do though is we will leave that on the carrying handle for these purposes. Oh, it's resting on the Lewis. And that takes it up to, change the units, wait a minute. 11.4 kilos, 11.38 kilos, which is then 25.1 pounds. So a couple of pounds heavier with the loaded mag, with the 30 round mag. Take that back off, do the same for the Bren. We've actually put 28 in the Bren magazine, as that seemed to be the common load. Let's just reset that. And let's see if that's on the carrying handle. No, it's not. You can start to, you can start to see that it's going to have a difference there. Change that back to kilos, because that's what we were reading first. 11.46 kilos, 25.2 pounds. So 0.1 of a pound heavier. Really negligible difference in that. But let's now look at the Lewis magazine. The Lewis gun magazine, with its 47 rounds, you know, standard ground service magazine. Let's put that on, and let's see where the set again. Tear that off. Let's see if that strap now becomes the center point or not. No, it starts to bring that center back, look, with the magazine fitted there. We'll let it hang. You can just see how much of a difference that is. So that's going to stop at 14.4 kilos, 31.7 pounds. So 6 or 7 pounds difference there between the Lewis with its full magazine and either the Bren or the Vickers-Berthier. Let's get that off like that. Otherwise that bit of wood may not last much longer. So there we go, a little bit of a difference, you know, roughly about £25 for the loaded Bren and Vickers-Berthier, £32 for the loaded Lewis gun. So you can see that the light machine gun roll was becoming much more lighter and easier for the soldier to carry, certainly the number one, and also have that difference in the magazine weights as well, that you could probably carry more ammunition or spread ammunition out easily across the section. Now, hopefully you've seen our recent video, our recent post on Instagram, where we highlight a few different things in the collection. One of the recent things was the ammunition boxes and link used by the South African Defence Force right into the 1980s, with this example being dated 1984. And they were actually the only, as far as we're aware, and our awareness is pretty good on these things, they were the only conventional army to convert their Vickers machine guns to 7.62 by 51, so the NATO ammunition. And this is the special link that they produced with the leading tab there as well, and hence why the plastic ammunition boxes, they were what they were using. One of the questions that came up as a result of this was, did the British ever trial the Vickers machine gun in the .276 ammunition that was trialled extensively just before the First World War? These trials were mainly on the rifle, and there were new rifles developed for it. However, it does seem that they attempted to convert a Maxim to fire it, and they did quite a few sort of various trials, mainly functional or technical trials on this. And it seems to have gone quite far, recommended for a service trial to be carried out. And it included the Hotchkiss light machine gun as well, which was not actually in service at the time, so that was quite good. But they had so many problems with the .276 round that those trials on the machine guns tend to stop. So there's nothing more said about them, and it's possibly that the heat caused by the .276 actually made it impractical. Vickers would stay in 303 until it was considered to be converted to the .280 cartridge, and then possibly the new NATO round, but just decided to be unpractical, and the fact that the FN mag, the L7, the GPMG was coming on service, that it it was pointless to do so, even to the point that there was a discussion in Parliament about it. Those of you that follow us that little bit more closely will hopefully have seen one of our most successful videos on the 0.5-inch Vickers machine gun. The Mark V is the example we've got in the collection here. This is a deactivated example, but we do hope that with the Patreon support and with the wider support and hopefully reopening the collection for visitors soon, we'll actually be able to look at acquiring a live firing example and getting that up and running, something to be able to show and share with you. So please, if there was something that was stopping you from becoming a patron, please do sign up and you'll be able to help us do that. Every little does help, despite it being a large sum. The more of you, the better. One of the things that came up as a recent question on an older video on the 0.5-inch was what actually was the penetrative power of the 0.5-inch Vickers ammunition. You know, that is substantially smaller than the Browning 50, and this is a 303 cartridge in comparison. We haven't got a .50 cal Browning to show to hand, but you can see there that that's quite a difference in size to the 303. But it's not as big as the Browning. Now what we've looked up is actually this had, the requirement was a 15mm penetration at normal angle of attack, which would mean it would penetrate the Panzer III, basically the A to C models of the Panzer III. It would penetrate much of the Italian armour that was still in existence 1940, 1941, and it would penetrate the scout and light armoured cars of the German reconnaissance units, which if you consider where this was being used, it was being used in the Mark 6A and Mark 6B light tanks. And that was their role. It was reconnaissance tanks, light tanks. They were not they weren't the heavier, the infantry armour or the even the tank-on-tank armour. They were sort of scoot and shoot kind of things. These were for their protection against light elements. So they would have penetrated the tanks of 1938, 1939, some of which I'm sure would have rolled into Europe in 1940 and maybe North Africa in the earlier part of the North Africa campaign there in 40-41. And the Mark 6 light tank is something you see more prevalent in North Africa at those points. Divisional cavalry regiments, things like that were using them. But this round would have become obsolete very, very quickly after 1941. So we see these go out of service and replaced with anti-tank capability, something that can fire proper armour-piercing shells. There were armour-piercing and semi-armour-piercing versions of this, you know, incendiary, tracer, all of the above. This round would continue to see service, though. It was an anti-aircraft round, light anti-aircraft round, small arms anti-aircraft on naval ships, and it would be mounted in batteries of 4 until that would be replaced by the 20mm Oerlikon, Polston type guns, and then eventually the 40mm Bofors would be alongside that as well. So this was, you know, this ammunition, this type of gun would quickly become obsolete and, you know, limited in its use to Royal Naval anti-aircraft use. It's worth saying though that there is a bigger brother to this in that the 0.5-inch high velocity round was much more powerful than the Browning 50 cal round as well, and would not see service though, not see War Office service. It would see some commercial service, and some examples were sold to the Japanese and I believe the Chinese as well. There were a few trial examples with the British, but nothing much more than that. They didn't go for that higher velocity round. They stuck with the 0.5-inch because that's what satisfied their needs when they were procuring it in the late 1930s. Now, I've got the Vickers-Berthier back on the table because one of the questions that came up from Ben Lewis in response to our Hodson's Horse photo study, so hopefully you've seen that, was did the Indians produce their own Vickers water-cooled machine guns or parts or anything like that? So the Vickers, as you know from our other videos, earlier question, this is an Indian-made Vickers-Berthier, but they didn't actually produce the normal water-cooled Vickers machine gun themselves. However, they did produce some parts, it would seem, and we've got some examples in the collection that are stamped RFI. So that's Rifle Factory Ishapur, and it seems that so we've got those stamped. What's not 100% clear to us at the moment is whether they produced those parts themselves or whether that's a approval stamp, because we know that they did order some from the Australian small arms factory at Lithgow, and they were supplied through that. And clearly they would have had a lot being supplied direct from the UK as part of the British Indian Army. Their Vickers would have come with them. The Vickers would have come with small parts, spare parts as well. But we do, let's say, we do have some of these RFI stamped parts in the collection here, and we've got some RFI stamped guns even. So yeah, the H5529 video that we've done, our skeletonized gun, was converted at an Indian ordnance factory, and yeah, but not produced that. We've seen barrels marked RFI, extractors, and a few other smaller components. So likely that they did produce their own parts because they don't conform to that normal ordnance or inspection stamp, but possible that they were just over-stamped Australian parts, in which case they would have had to remove the Australian markings because they don't remain on those. So I think they did produce their own parts, having talked that through with you. But only very limited numbers, and possibly those highest wear and tear parts, such as barrels and extractors. They would have had the capability. They were producing the Vickers-Berthier. They were producing their own rifles. You know, this is not a case of having to do something really, really new and really, really different for them. So quite possible they just didn't have the demand to produce their own Vickers machine guns because they were being supplied plenty of surplus Vickers machine guns from the British War Office.
Also prompted by that Hodgson horse photo, Ben asked what the water rate, the water consumption would be for the Vickers machine gun, and whether all the condenser would catch it all, which, as you can see from this poster, 1918, and it didn't change all the way through to the 1951 variants that we've got. The water boiled after about 600 rounds rapid fire. It evaporates for says about 1.5 pints for every 1,000 rounds fired. Now that doesn't seem that much. Clearly you need to capture as much as possible within the condenser can once that would be put into service. But there wasn't, this isn't like boiling straight away, and it clearly isn't evaporating very, very fast. You're able to control it. You do need to keep that water in there though, holding 7.5 pints and adding about 10 pounds of weight to the weight of the gun. At the start of the First World War, though, there wasn't really that much detail on how much, what the rate of water consumption would be. So they carried out an endurance trial, and at Grantham, at the machine gun school, the machine gun training centre, and that found, though, that actually a pint of water was being expended for every bout. So it clearly varied depending on the rate of fire. It doesn't seem they learnt massively from that endurance trial, though. That poster came in after it, and then you had the 1946 manual, even the small arms training manual, that captured all of that Second World War learning, recording that 1.5 pints would be lost for every 2 bouts fired. So slightly different again. We go from 1 bout, 600 rounds, so 2 bouts plus, and then 2 bouts. So it clearly varied so much. As always, keep your questions coming in whichever format you want to. Here's a little snapshot of a project that we've got on the go at the moment, and you'll be hearing more about soon. So we look forward to hearing from you. Comments box below this video, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Patreon comments. Just get in touch, support the association, and make sure that you keep your eyes and ears open for news of this book reprint project that we're working on at the moment.
Thank you for watching. Please remember to like and share the video and subscribe to the channel. Please support us on Patreon if you're able to, and let us know of anything you'd like to see in the future. I look forward to hearing from you.